to beat it. 8-0. You see Crouse on your left and Hal Brady bringing him back on camera. He's 8-0. He is on the right.
I like what Sean's up to here. This deck makes sense to me.
Makes sense, and it makes sense in this metagame. Well, Brady, though, winning the die roll. He'll be on the play. Starts out with one of the scary parts of his deck. That's turn 1 Elvish Mystic on Sean's side. Well, he has an Elvish Mystic of his own, but his is off Land War Wastes. Go back. Both players ramping out cards. It does seem like he can interact with Hal's late game, though.
For sure, the Planeswalkers help a lot. He is a little light on ways to remove Mastery of the Unseen from the table. That's something that would concern me.
Yeah, he'll have to. I mean, in a lot of ways, he's going to have to overpower the Devotion deck, which we oftentimes have said is very difficult to do. But he's got a strategy which I think has a shot at it.
Yeah.
So turn 2 Voyaging Satyr on Hal's side of the board. On Sean's, he has a turn 2 Courser of Krufix revealing Garruk Apex Predator.
And Sean's got a lot more mana acceleration in his hand, and he can get to that Garruk pretty fast.
Question, we'll see. What can Hal get on the board? I mean, something like a turn 3 Whisperwood Elemental could certainly make this look difficult for Sean. We'll see what he ramps into. 5 mana on turn 3. It's just going to be a Pelucranos. I mean, still just a Pelucranos. And we're back over to Crouse. Draw for the turn. That's going to be the copy of Garruk. And plays land for the turn. 4 mana. It looks like he will have Frontier Siege. So if you want to talk about ramping into big threats, this is a huge threat for Sean. He's going to go ahead and set it to Khans. So he gets 2 mana at the beginning of both of his main phases.
And what's so nice about this is even if Hal spends next turn Pelucranosing away all these Elvish Mystics, that looks like a really powerful turn, Sean still gets access to Garruk on the way back.
Yeah, it's Hero's Downfall, the next card on top of Sean's library. Well, he could make... He'd be one short, but he'd be close. Can Hal kill... Hal would have to kill all the Elvish Mystics.
Yeah, and that's asking a lot.
I can probably kill 2, but all's a lot. I mean, Sean will take a big hit here. Don't get me wrong. The Pelucranos will be big, but... And
the tempo swing is so bad here for Hal if he spends his whole turn using Pelucranos.
And then Garruk kills Pelucranos.
Right, but the flip side is, what are you supposed to do? Just let Sean go into next turn with all that mana? He's drawing Hero's Downfall.
Yeah. And it's not like the damage matters. If Garruk is to kill Pelucranos, Garruk gains the life off killing Pelucranos. So he gains whatever damage was dealt back. So Monstrosity of X equals 2 for Pelucranos will eat 2 Elvish Mystics, and 7 damage comes in. Sean goes down to 17. He will have 6 mana this turn. Questionably, does he have the 7th land on top of his deck? 2 mana off Frontier Siege.
I mean, the consolation prize here is a mana creature and a downfall on the Pelucranos, which is not bad. It's not as good as playing Garruk, but this is not bad.
And we see the Hero's Downfall on the Pelucranos, using one of the 2 green mana off of the pre-combat Frontier Siege. So still has 1 green floating. We see over there. Gonna go ahead, go to combat. He swings with the Courser of Krufix. That'll be 2 damage. Goes back in 2 mana post-combat. Can he spend that? Of course he can. It's gonna be Elvish Mystic. And that should be enough mana for a Garruk next turn. And Brady's board doesn't have any threat on it. But we'll see if he can fix that. It's going to be Genesis Hydra on 5, and that's going to be a pretty good one. Top 5 cards shows Pelucranos, Teamer Sabertooth, and we have, I believe, it's got to be Mastery of the Unseen then, too. No, Banishing Light, rather.
Banishing Light's not bad, though. A problem with this line of play is that Sean does get to just play the Frontier Siege on top of his deck. It does set Sean back a turn from getting to Garruk, but it's not a long-term solution.
Yeah, and depending on what he sees, he could actually reset the Frontier Siege. He does see Swamp on top of his deck. He'll go ahead and play that. That gains him a life. And I was going to say, if he's on untapped land on top of his deck, he wouldn't even have to Frontier Siege on Khans. He could do it on Dragons. But he'll cast Frontier Siege, and this one is on Khans again.
There's not a lot of synergies for Khans on Dragons in Sean's list here. He's got 2 copies of Hornet Queen.
But that's huge. That sweeps the board.
Although Hornet Queen also, the tokens are pretty good by themselves. It doesn't need a lot of upgrading. The Archfiend is something that can come up.
I would expect this where some sieges we see, especially with Outpost Siege, it getting set to both modes. Frontier Siege seems like it's nearly always on the same one.
Yep.
Hal, another Genesis Hydra on 5, and this could be scary for Sean to deal with. It's not even clear that Garruk will be enough at this point.
It was looking like, Sean was close to stabilizing the game, a lot of chump blockers, and the Garrick in hand that he's close to deploying, but Hal might just overpower him before Sean can get his defenses set up here.
Yeah, another Genesis Hydra. This one could go into Pelukrinos or Mastery of the Unseen. And Cal's going to have to make a decision as to which one he wants. It's just gonna go for the fat. It'll be Pelukrinos.
So there is some risk with this line of play here. Sean's going to gain some life from the Garrick. Sean's got chump blockers to work with. And if Garrick gets to stay in play for a long time, you know, Cal's empty-handed right now.
Garrick can actually take care of lots of fat creatures.
Your three, and Radiant Fountain's a huge draw. This is giving Sean even a further cushion.
Wow, Radiant Fountain. So it's just a one-of in his deck, but really shows up at a great time, so gain 3. And now we see Garrick Apex Predator. So this guy's going to have to do a lot of... He's on a pretty big cleanup duty.
Yeah, I almost wonder if... I almost wonder here if Hal was supposed to take Mastery of the Unseen there with the Genesis Hydra, because this setup feels so bad for me. You know, he's going to be starting to bang out these 3/3 Death Touchers. That locks up the Genesis Hydras. Sean's now at 15. He's got a lot of life to play with.
Garrick starts by -3. He kills Pelukrinos because Pelukrinos can remove the blockers, and then it's going to be starting up with Death Touchers. He has just enough creatures, I think, to keep the Garrick alive. And if you swing... Yep, both the Elvish Mystics are going to step in front of Genesis Hydras. They're going to protect that Planeswalker as best they can. Now the question is, what are the Hal's follow-ups? And they look pretty good here. It's going to be Courser of Krufix, and I believe another copy of Pelukrinos. That might be too much for Sean to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, it looks like it's Teamer Sabretooth, I believe.
Yep.
And that's pretty scary in its own right. They can start bouncing these Genesis Hydras. We saw that happening a fair amount at GP Miami.
Yeah, if the game stalls out a little bit, that's something that Hal can go to. And if he had Teamer Sabretooth, then I can see not taking the Mastery of the Unseen from the earlier Genesis Hydra, because Hal already has a plan for the game stalls out and I need to do something with my mana.
Has 2 mana. He can bounce it back, recast the Genesis Hydras, continue to get more mana. Back over to Sean's side. He makes a Death Touch Beast right there. And Sylvan Carry added. Can he protect the Garruk long enough? Jungle Hollow gains him a life. One thing I do like about Frontier Sieges in Sean's deck as well is that they work really well with this Eidolon of Blossoms, and that Eidolon's the kind of card which wants you just to have a lot of mana, and Frontier Siege lets you do that. And we're back over to Hal's side. Mastery of the Unseen waits on top of his deck. He does have a Pelukrinos. In hand. Sabretooth, Courser, Hydra in play. And he needs to get that Garruk off the board, but once he does, it looks pretty good for Brady. And here's going to be a swing. We'll confirm where it's going here. The Death Touch Beast steps in front of Teamer Sabretooth.
Yeah, the Sabretooth takes a lot of the sting out of this one Death Touch token.
Oh, he's actually thinking about that. There's no, because there's no safe spot. Either the Sabretooth becomes indestructible or it bounces the thing that he blocks with the Beast. Or Sean can just trade with the Beast. He actually just reevaluates and decides to let them all take down Garrick.
I think that he could have put the token in front of the Courser, for example, because if Hal wants to spend mana picking that up, that's fine.
Yeah, that's true. We do see Eidolon of Blossoms, the draw for Sean. But that's not going to be very helpful. It goes to pre-combat mana. He can use his Khan's mana. Casting Eidolon of Blossoms, but it's only going to draw Macari added. Forest on top, plays Forest for the turn, gains a life. Another Forest on top, can't do anything about that one. And that's going to be his draw for next turn as well. And if that's his next turn draw, I don't see him surviving.
No.
There's just so much resiliency in this green-white deck right now.
Well, I think Sean probably survives this turn because he's got a lot of hexproof chump blockers, but the next turn, I think Hal has lethal.
And there aren't cards like Crux of Fate or straight. I guess the sweeper is Ugin. If Sean could work his way up to Ugin, he could get rid of everything here. Granted, Hal could bounce it all back to his own hand.
Yeah. The Sabretooth, just a one-of here, but very potent to find off of Genesis Hydras when you have access to all the mana in your entire deck, and also good in spots like this where you have a lot of mana to work with, and you just need something to do while you're trying to attrition out your opponent. Mastery of the Unseen plays a similar role. and the Sabertooth does that too.
And we see jumps in front of the two Hydras. Pelucranos getting blocked by the Death Touch Beast. And Sabertooth getting in there. That's on the attack. So 4 damage showing up right now. And it looks like before that Death Touch is going to happen, Pelucranos might just eat a whole bunch of creatures.
Yeah, might as well just get the other stuff that Sean has left in play.
Yep, it'll take care of the Courser. Gets bigger, gets a token, trades with the Death Toucher. 4 damage across, puts Sean down to 14. Pelucranos trades with the Death Touch Beast. The Genesis Hydras eat the Sylvan Caryatids. And now just an Eidolon of Blossoms and Outpost Siege in play for Sean. He draws Forest for the turn, plays it. And the draw was Mastery of the Unseen for Hal. And he has 16 power in play.
Yeah, this is a lethal attack, I'm fairly sure.
Oh, there's an Eidolon. It can jump.
Yeah, and I think there's still
there's all the mana creatures on the side. Yeah, it's still lethal. So game 1 over to Hal Brady.
All the little dorks still can attack there at the
You forget
end.
their creatures sometimes. They're just little mana guys. But game 1 over to Green White Devotion and to Hal Brady. So going for that 9-0 spot. Still have yet to see this deck get taken down.
Yeah, been really impressive. It looks so good in Miami, and I've seen surprisingly little of it so far in Dallas. We've seen surprisingly little of it, but Hal Brady looking at potentially being one of our last, if not our last, 9-0 going into the next day.
All right, so let's start on sideboards. Looking at Sean Krause's sideboard, it looks like he has a lot in the main deck for the matchup, but can he do even more?
He does. He's got an Archfiend Depravity, 2 copies of Nissa Worldwaker, and a Reclamation Sage, 3 copies of Bile-Blight, 2 Drowned Sorrow, 3 Thoughtseize, 3 Read the Bones. Definitely like bringing in the other Archfiend. I like bringing in the 3 copies of Thoughtseize. I think a lot of the remaining removal is a little mopey. I think Drowned in Sorrow is probably only for matchups where it's lights out because it kills a lot of Sean's stuff too. So probably not coming in this matchup. I think the 1 Reclamation Sage is fine to bring in as well. A lot of enchantments in Hal's deck.
Yeah, Mastery of the Unseen among them. Also, Courser of Krufix probably is good enough. On Hal Brady's side, he actually gets to bring in his own Reclamation Sages. Once again, he's playing against Constellation, so that seems pretty solid. This is actually one of the matchups where I would expect him to bring in also his copy of Setessan Tactics.
Yeah, Sean's got a lot of mana creatures as well, a lot of small stuff. The board can bog up a little bit like we saw that game, and Setessan Tactics is generally powerful.
Now, outside of that, the cards like Nissa Worldwaker, Fleece Mainline, Valorous Stance, I'm not sure Hal wants any of them in the matchup.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Valorous Stance is so flexible that it's rare that you're wrong for bringing it in, but it doesn't seem like a particularly good matchup for it.
Yeah, so as these players, they're still signing on to Game 2. We were talking a little bit about some of the books that we currently have available on Star City Games. One of them, we talked about the Commander's Arsenal. This is one of the ebooks we've had. This is written by Benny Smith, a longtime author on the website. The Complete Commander, rather, the unofficial guide, is updated for Commander 2014. You may have already read it, but you can read more about it on starcitygames.com/Complete Commander. And I know Benny Smith, someone who's been writing a long time in the community.
Yeah, someone who's been a, sort of a centerpiece of the casual community for a very long time, a writer for Star City Games also for a very long time, former Virginia State champion, and very passionate about Commander. Again, available with the Complete Commander here, updated for Commander 2014, available on PDF at starcitygames.com/Complete Commander.
Looking at, so going into the game matchup, we did say game 1, it looks like a decent matchup for Crouse. Neither player seems to have a great plan for their sideboard.
Not really. I mean, Sean's deck is already coming equipped game 1, about to the extent that a deck realistically can against Green White Devotion. And Hal's deck is so linear that the sideboard often does not offer you some great options. You have Nissa for control matchups. You have Fleece Mane Lion also for, and hostility style matchups, and for beatdown matchups where you just need an early blocker. But by and large, the Green White Devotion, most of its power, most of what it's doing is composition in game 1. Not to say it gets bad during sideboarding, it's just most of what the deck's up to you see in the 60 cards.
Yeah, and even said it seems like a matchup that Sean can win. But yeah, it was overpowered, at least in that game, just by Genesis Hydra, I think, showing off yet again.
Exactly. He just got 2 for 1 too many times. I like his matchup here. I do think that Sean's got a lot of really good tools. They just, Hal's draw, that game was just so good.
Yeah, once you get, I think the addition of Thought Seizes out of the sideboard should help him here.
Yeah, if he can weather the storm of some of his big plays, if he can strip them out of the hand before they show up, or if he can have spot removal for Pelucranos the turn that it shows up, Sean's got a lot you know, his deck's a lot less predicated on the board looking particular ways. It's a lot less fidgety. He just has big stuff that works on its own. So if he's able to hold off Hal's explosive, overpowering plays, I think in a straight fight, Sean's got an edge.
Yeah, Sean will get to be on the play here for game 2 as well. These are actually the last 2 players undefeated at 8-0, so this will be for the crown of being the only 9-0 player entering day 2.
And for Hal, a real credit to his pace of play, because we saw at Grand Prix Miami, this deck can take a very long time to play. A lot of players got quite a few unintentional draws, rather. And Hal at 8-0, playing a very fast pace. Where I have not seen him take these turns that take forever. He's not overthinking it. He's playing at a brisk pace, which is really important if you're going to pick this deck up.
Looking through to checking sideboards one other time here. And we did see Hal with some of his own updates to the list as well. Playing a copy of Soul of Theros, that was a card you talked about as possible mirror breaker of a card. Not something that was standard in the GP Miami list.
I think that if you want to, you know, really win the mirror, you have to go to something really, really powerful, something like in Garrick's Wake, which this deck can pretty easily facilitate, I feel like. I like Erebos too. I think it's a deck where you can just, Erebos is pretty good against them anyway. They're not really pressuring you very much. You have some time, and shutting off the life gain element means that
you have to add black, right? For the green-white deck.
Well, the deck's already playing 4 copies of Corsair Crufix, and you have a Blossoming Sands. The Blossoming Sands could easily become a Sandstep Citadel. That's
or an Urborg.
Yeah. And when you're playing the mirror match, your entire deck is on the table at a certain point, so it's not hard to facilitate these kind of splashes, even for ambitious cards.
All right, well, underway. Sean's the first one with a mana creature in play. His is Sylvan Caryatid. Hal will match it with a Voyaging Satyr of his own, so both players ramping up. We'll see what they ramp into, though, as that will be of utmost importance here. Back on Hal's side, land does have another land, and it will be Bioblight to take down the mana creature. Looking like he will follow it up with another Sylvan Caryatid of his own.
Yeah, I was interested to see if he was going to bring these in. They're very good early on, but later on, they're quite bad. Sean has it at the right moment right now.
Bioblight and Sylvan Caryatid. So Sean threatening to leverage a large mana advantage over Hal here. He'll scry for the turn. And looks like play Mastery of the Unseen, but now 3-6. We'll see what card Sean can get into play, but he certainly is ahead.
Looks like it's just mana, or a lot of lands rather, in Sean's hand. We'll see if he has some sort of big play.
Yeah, he has a Drown in Sorrow, but I don't know if he has a finisher. He does need one. That Mastery of the Unseen on Hal's side can do a lot of damage if the game stalls out. I guess Sean does, he does have the Drown in Sorrow, so he has time.
Well, the problem is that the Mastery can just, if it happens to find something big initially, then your Drown in Sorrow is not very effective anymore.
Sure. Eventually it'll find something like we've seen Hal flip Coursers and Whisperwood Elementals off it already.
It's a lot of big creatures in the deck. It's only a matter of time before they find one of them. And it looks like he does have a card to follow up with. And this is Archfiend of Depravity. So this guy pretty effective against the Screenway Devotion strategy. Hal missing his 4th land drop as well. So at the end of each player's turn, they choose up to 2 creatures and have to sacrifice the rest of them. On top of that, he's a 5/4 flyer. Yeah, so it does a very good job of playing catch-up when your opponent's done a lot of Mastery Unseeing and so forth. And also 5-power flyer is pretty naturally good against Green-White Devotion.
And Hal, with one of his few answers, it's one of his 2 copies of Banishing Light that will take care of the Archfiend. So far, so good for Hal. He's dodging that bullet. And then he plays a Pelucranos of his own. See if Sean can find a way to get rid of that Banishing Light or find another Archfiend. But right now, it looks like he is all lands. Plays a 3rd copy of Sylvan Caryatid.
And Hal has recovered from his initial mana stumbles and is now just a handful of spells.
Yeah, plays Whisperwood Elemental, swings with Pelucranos. Pelucranos takes down a Sylvan Caryatid. Draw for Sean. Looks to be more mana. That one's a Nykthos. And Sean's hand, very powerful initially. A lot of mana ramp. He had 1 big payoff spell, but it was a hand that really could be done in by a card like Banishing Light, and it looks like that's what's playing out.
Well, he still has a draw to something like Ugin. That would help him quite a bit here.
That'd be great.
Garrick's not necessarily bad here, but he's running out of time. This Green-White Devotion deck, uncontested, can kill very quickly.
Yep, and you see swings here from creatures, and Sean knows how quick it can happen. He's going to put Sylvan Caryatid in front of Pelucranos takes 6, 4 from the Whispered Elemental, 2 from the Manifest, and he's going to need something this turn. It's probably an Ugin. Believe he drew Bioblight, which won't help.
Even Ugin would only do so much in the face of these Manifest tokens.
Drown in Sorrow will be his play.
Sure, I guess.
Could do a lot worse.
Yeah, it's not getting much better.
And that'll work. That'll take care of both the Manifests. They were a Forest and a Windswept Heath. It also takes care of an Elvish Mystic. I think Sean as much wants to get the Scry one out of it. Well, a Temple of Malady, that will certainly go to the bottom. And his secondary play, that's going to be Doomwake Giant. It will do one more, so that'll take care of the Sylvan Caryatid as well.
Okay, not a shabby turn. I mean, given that Sean's tools are not very powerful right now, that's about as much as you could ask for.
Hal on end step will start the Manifesto again, though. And Mastery of the Unseen activated. So go back over. And it's going to be Reclamation Sage taking care of the Doomwake Giant. That's huge game. And here comes the whole army. Pelucranos, Whisperwood, and the Manifest token. And the last chump block made, Caryatid steps in front of Pelucranos. Sean takes 6, goes down to 9. That should bring him to his last draw. Might be Ugin or bust. We'll see if he can get it. And he may have just done it. Looks like he was drawing, was ready to flip it and concede, and now he goes back to thinking.
Yeah, I believe the draw step was Garrick, which is still not great here, because the best thing that Sean can do, I think, is just kill something, and I think he still dies on the way back.
Garrick, a good draw, needed it earlier, but we'll do something at gain. Takes care of Pelucranos, and he gains 5, so Sean will go up to 14. Maybe up bottom a turn.
Yeah, it looks like it's worth about a turn.
But it's getting more and more dangerous because the possible draw of Ugin is becoming less and less good here.
Yeah, I mean, Hal could just pass the turn, activate Mastery of the Unseen, and Ugin does very little. And there's also a Whisperwood Elemental to boot, so he has lethal through Ugin next turn because the Manifest tokens don't go anywhere.
Sean down to 6. His draw is Eidolon of Blossoms. That'll be one more card. Looks like it's a Drown in Sorrow.
Which doesn't work here because he can still activate Mastery of the Unseen and attack with Whisperwood Elemental.
Yes, still 6 damage. And it looks like Sean knows it. And he'll go ahead and cast the Drown in Sorrow. Gonna make Hal go through it. Looks like Hal has something to unmorph as well. It's going to flip up Courser of Crufix.
That does it too. Either way it works.
And there you have it. 2 games, Hal Brady winning in a commanding fashion, and he is your leader after day 1, the only player at 9-0. He'll enter as a pretty strong favorite tomorrow.
Back-to-back, very impressive performances here for Green White Devotion. And I'm interested to see what the metagame is going to look like in Richmond. We still have a lot of Magic left to play in Dallas this weekend, but right now it's looking like the most powerful deck in Standard. It's been very impressive. The thing that's impressed me the most is its ability to be fluid in its roles. It can be aggressive. It can play the attrition game. It can play the, go crazy with Nykthos game. Just very, very flexible.
Yeah, Mastery of the Unseen, a great addition for the Devotion deck, and we have definitely seen that play out today.
Yeah.